must also be prevented from rechanneling their energies towards expansion of their territories or their sphere of influence to get assured markets. Unfortunately, or perhaps fortunately for the rest of the world, the American Constitution enshrines a system of open government which does not allow its leaders to exercise such dominion over other countries and governments in the same way that leaders of totalitarian states can. Let us then not forget, Mr. Speaker, Mr. President, that protectionism and less trade means less growth for the developing countries. This also means that debt burdens cannot be discharged. Defaults may be inevitable, with incalculable consequences for the international banking system. And even if the banks survive these upheavals, these developing countries will have to abandon all thoughts of liberalization towards plurality and more democratic freedoms. For severe and repressive government is the other side of austere or negative economic growth. An overstrong dollar has caused the huge trade deficits. A volatile and speculative foreign exchange market has exaggerated the factors working towards a strong dollar. The recent meeting in New York of the G5 finance ministers of the 5 largest industrial nations has given grounds for optimism that the overvalued dollar can be brought down by concerted action of G5 finance ministers and their central bankers. Congress may wish to stay their hand and allow these efforts time to work. Mr. Speaker, Mr. President, in case lobbyists for Japanese interests believe that they are going to be joined by someone from Singapore who ought to register his interests, let me add that I do not suggest that the Japanese should not be cajoled and, if necessary, coerced with all the powers at America's command to open up their markets. America can legitimately and justly use all means to knock down Japanese barriers and obstacles to imports. There was a time in the 1950s and 60s when Americans looked with amusement and tolerance at the ingeniousness of Japanese obstacles to imports. But after Japan has become the second largest economic power as a result of open and fair trade, it is right that she should be made to abide by the rules that have brought her to such unprecedented prosperity. And the rest of Asia will cheer with joy. For then their goods will also get into Japan without going through an obstacle course. Let me add and declare my position that 95% of U.S. goods enter Singapore duty-free and quota-free. And for 14 out of the last 15 years, the U.S. has enjoyed trade surpluses with Singapore, and we are not complaining. But for America to put up tariffs and barriers to Japanese goods, instead of tearing down Japanese barriers to American exports, will hurt the rest of Asia twice over. First, by having these same tariffs and barriers to overcome in America. Second, by not being able to sell to Japan because the Japanese will be selling less to America. It is right to compel not only the Japanese but also the others to help the system function better. And if threatening retaliation for unequal access to markets is part of this process towards open and fair trade, then so be it. America has the right to ask that those who have benefited from America's markets open up their own. Some countries, like those in the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, have supported the U.S. initiative to have GATT begin a new round of discussions for lowering barriers to trade in goods and perhaps also to regularize trade in services. The answer to job losses is more, not less trade. America can upgrade her declining low value-added industries, or they will continue to decline whether America goes protectionist or not. Just as the ancient agricultural societies of pre-industrial China and Japan, with their self-sufficient subsistence economies based on buffalo and manpower, had to change with the advent of steam and the industrial age. Rapid and profound change is the kind of world Americans have created by their inventiveness. And American legislators now have the awesome responsibility of deciding under what rules the peoples of so many different countries should undergo rapid changes in their ways of making a living and yet avoid violent conflicts. In every age, the leading power has to carry the burden of encouraging the peaceful acceptance of the status quo. This is done by punishing aggression and rewarding peaceful cooperation. The British carried this burden for over 100 years after they pioneered the Industrial Revolution. This responsibility passed to America after the Second World War. It is inherent in America's position as the preeminent economic, political, and military power to have to settle and to uphold the rules for orderly change and progress. And Americans are still leaders in a marathon for technological change and product innovation. American enterprise is blazing the trail into the microchip and computerized world of tomorrow. It is in the interest of peace and security that America upholds the rules of international conduct, which rewards peaceful, cooperative behavior and punishes transgressions of the peace. A replay of the Depression of the 1930s, which led to World War II, would be ruinous for all. All major powers in the West share this responsibility for not repeating this mistake. But America's is the primary responsibility, for she is the anchor economy of the free market economies of the world. In your hands, therefore, lie the future of the world. Thank you.